When traveling to foreign countries, it's important to abide by their particular rules and customs. But what if those rules are just plain bonkers? As always, it's best to check before you travel, but I'll give you a heads up with these 20 bizarre things you can't do in foreign countries. Number 20. Play video games after midnight. Luckily, this one only applies if you're a teenager living in South Korea, so any tourists or older generations are unaffected. But if you're under the age of 16, the shutdown law, also known as the Cinderella law, forbids you from playing video games between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. The law came into effect in 2011 with the hope of putting an end to video game addiction and use, but has since allowed a revision which states that the ban can be lifted at the parents' request, so you better hope that your parents are as addicted to Fortnite as you are. Number 19. Don't be drunk while riding a cow. In Scotland, the Licensing Act of 1872 clearly states it's illegal to operate a cow or steam engine while intoxicated. Although it's debatable what they mean by operate a cow, if it's akin to operating a steam engine, then surely it's explicitly prohibiting the riding of a cow while drunk. I wonder how many times it must have happened for them to actually outlaw it. While it's a funny thought, you definitely shouldn't take this law lightly. It can result in a fine of 200 pounds or even jail time. Plus, you know, the cow doesn't deserve that. Number 18. Don't eat mince pies on Christmas Day. Christmas is known as a time of overindulgence, so could you imagine celebrating the day without stuffing your face with sweets? Well, during the rule of Oliver Cromwell in the UK, Christmas as a holiday was totally banned. Legislation passed by him in 1656 meant that shops would stay open as usual on December 25th, and any food prepared for part of a Christmas feast would be seized by patrolling guards. While Cromwell's new laws eventually led to riots, it is interesting to note that no new law was ever enacted to repeal the law on sweet treats. Number 17. Don't fly a UFO. It might be one of the strangest laws ever to exist, but in a French town called Châteauneuf-du-Pape, the mayor recently refused to overturn his predecessor's flying saucer ban. The law dates back to 1954 when a local villager allegedly saw two figures emerging from a cigar-shaped spaceship. This incident has now been dismissed as a publicity stunt. I'll let you decide, but either way, this bizarre decree has kept people talking. Number 16. Don't frown. If you're feeling upset or angry, you might not want to let your face show it, while visiting Milan, Italy at least. That's because it's a legal requirement to smile at all times, with the exception of funerals and hospital visits, where presumably sadness is allowed to be shown. According to historian André Sant'Angelo, the rule is part of the 19th century city regulations imposed by the Austrians when they ruled Milan, and has subsequently never been repealed. Number 15. Don't show tattoos on TV. In early 2018, the State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and Television in China delivered a blow to popular Chinese musicians and footballers by placing a ban on tattooed people appearing on television. The reasoning behind it? Well, they ruled that tattoos were a sign of hip-hop culture, not in keeping with the nationalist image promoted by the government, and were thus inappropriate for TV. Number 14. Don't run out of gas on the highway. You won't want to be short on gas if you happen to be driving in Germany on the Autobahn. Part of their Saint Vo or road traffic regulations state that running out of gas on the motorway is punishable by a fine, which is upwards of $35 depending on the length of time you're stuck there making a nuisance of yourself. The reasoning behind the law and the fines is that running out of gas is a human error which could easily be avoided, which is fair enough really. Number 13. Don't kiss at train stations. Some people dislike PDA, but if you're locking lips at a train station in France, then you're actually breaking a law. That's because in 1910, the National Railway Company of France introduced a ban on kissing while on a train platform, because it often delayed trains. Admittedly, the law is no longer upheld by French transport police, but no new legislation has ever been passed to repeal the original law. Number 12. Don't name your baby certain things. Deciding on the perfect name for your baby is an important task for parents to be, but if you live in some countries, you may have extra criteria to meet. In Portugal, for instance, the Institute of Registries and Notaries has an 80-page guide which contains a list of acceptable names. Foreign names such as the British version of Thomas or Charlotte are not allowed, and neither are abbreviations or nicknames, so if any of you Portuguese viewers hate your first name, blame the government. Number 11. Don't wear blue jeans. In 2016, when Kim Jong-un feared that North Koreans were being exposed to outside influences, especially Western culture, his response was to issue a ban on blue jeans. This was part of a tightening of legislation that happened just prior to the 7th Congress of North Korea's Workers' Party. The rule also included restrictions on piercings, skirt length, and hairstyles. Number 10. Don't be overweight at work. It might seem like something that is a matter of personal choice, but if you're deemed overweight in Japan's compulsory employee flab checks, your employer could face penalties, including having to fire you. The Metabo law was introduced in 2008 and requires every worker over the age of 40 to take part in a health test, which includes guidelines for a maximum waistline size. Those who fail to measure up are given a diet plan, with some companies even choosing to offer free gym memberships to motivate staff. Although this sounds like a great idea to reduce calorie intake and health risks associated with obesity, the idea of a food police has not been so well received. Number 9. Don't reincarnate without permission. This one sounds crazy, but if you happen to be a Tibetan Buddhist monk, your afterlife comes within the scope of a Chinese government law. In 2007, the State Religious Affairs Bureau Order No. 5 was passed, which stated that any Buddhist temple must file a reincarnation application before they are allowed to recognize individuals as takas, which means reincarnated teacher. In effect, any Tibetan Buddhist who plans to be reborn must have government approval. The law has been viewed not only as a way for China to control over religion, but also in hopes of reducing the power of the Dalai Lama. Number 8. Don't die in Parliament. It was named the most absurd law in Britain back in 2008, but a ban on people dying in the UK Parliament really does exist. This is because Parliament is technically a royal palace, the Palace of Westminster, and any person who dies within its walls would be entitled to a state funeral. So in essence, the ban is a way of saving money. It's interesting to wonder, though, what the penalty would be for dying on the premises, since, the guilty party would be, well, dead. Number 7. Don't pay entirely with change. If you're visiting Canada, you'd better make sure that you empty your pockets of change, but not by paying for your shopping with it. It may sound bizarre, but Section 8 of the Currency Act places restrictions on how much change you can use in a single transaction. For example, you cannot pay with more than 25 times single cents, and you can't count out more than $25 in single dollar bills. So if you're Canadian and you're saving up some loonies in your piggy bank, you'll have to think again. Number 6. Don't lip sync. We can all agree that noticeable lip syncing looks terrible, but is there really a need to make a law about it? Well, in Turkmenistan, one exists. In 2005, former President Sapir Marut Niyazov placed a ban on lip syncing in all forms, including live television appearances and private functions, such as weddings. I'm not sure how that latter one could be fully policed, but props to him for making a stand against this travesty of musical performances. Number 5. Don't wear your hair in a mullet. The mullet is one hairstyle that many people wish would remain firmly in the history books. But if you live in Iran, you're much less likely to ever see one. That's because, along with other supposedly decadent Western hairstyles, the mullet is banned there and has been since 2010. The Iranian Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance was responsible for setting out these rules, which include guidelines for which hairstyles are appropriate in the country. Number 4. Don't make the OK sign. To Westerners, it may seem like an inoffensive gesture, but making the OK sign in Turkey could land you in a lot of trouble. While it isn't illegal, it is classed as an extremely vulgar gesture, and can either be an insult, suggesting a person is an or that you're accusing someone of being a homosexual. It's probably best to stick with a simple thumbs up. Number 3. Don't hold a fish suspiciously. The very thought of holding a wet, slippery fish might be enough to make your stomach turn. But if it is something you're interested in, be sure to keep to the guidelines of the Salmon Act of 1986 and act confidently as you do it. This law from the UK states that it is forbidden to handle fish in suspicious circumstances. And despite the name, the law isn't limited to just salmon either. Its full text includes salmon, trout, eels, lampreys, smelt, and freshwater fish. Number 2. Don't wake a sleeping bear for a photo. Have you ever wondered where in the world it's legal to shoot a bear to kill, but illegal to wake a sleeping bear to take its photo? Well, the answer is Alaska. Putting aside the fact that no one in their right mind would choose to endanger their lives by disturbing a sleeping predator just for a selfie, the Alaskan Department of Fish and Game holds extensive regulations just on wildlife viewing alone. Ironically, thanks to Donald Trump, it is now legal to shoot a sleeping bear with a gun. Number 1. Don't keep goldfish in a glass bowl. People display extreme love for their pets, but if you're from Rome, Italy, chances are you might have much higher pet care standards than the rest of the world. In 2004, the local council in the town of Reggio Emilia caused a furor when they adopted an animal rights bylaw stating that to keep goldfish in a round glass bowl was inhumane. Punishments for breaking the law, which also included a ban on live lobster, is a fine of over $550. This sounds like a town that really loves its aquatic friends. Also, be wary of goldfish rights if you're from Switzerland. In 2008, the country outlawed owning single goldfish, along with many other specific laws to increase animal rights. The law is based on the fact that goldfish are inherently social creatures, so shouldn't be alone. I guess it makes sense. So, which law did you find the most bizarre? Is there anything that you think should have been included on the list? Let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.